My 93-year-old dad is iconic, but I want to introduce you to the real legend of the family, Elena. She lived with my family for about 30 years, and about 6 months ago, she decided it was time for her to move back to the Philippines.
Hey everyone, my name is Maria David and welcome back again to my YouTube channel. I am back again with another interesting video. So today's video, a white lady, she's a rich kid kinda, so she posted that she's taking a nanny that worked for her for over 30 years back to Philippines, because she has been working for her for 30 years. She hasn't gone back to her country. She has been in America and all of that. So she just made a cute little video and trying to be like, okay, telling the whole world, like, oh, she's so caring, she's taking a nanny to the Philippines and after 30 years. So I'm going to play the video for you and come back and talk about it.
My 93-year-old dad is iconic, but I want to introduce you to the real legend of the family, Elena. She lived with my family for about 30 years, and about 6 months ago, she decided it was time for her to move back to the Philippines. She got me ready for my first day of preschool, moved me into my college dorm and everything in between, so taking her back to the Philippines was something I could not have wanted to do more.
You're going to the Philippines?
Yes, I'm going to the Philippines. I have to take her home. It had been over 30 years since Nanny had last been to the Philippines. She sacrificed raising her son and daughter to get a job in America and send every dollar she could back home to her family. She is the hardest worker, and it's not an exaggeration to say that she's been through hell, yet somehow she's the smiliest, happiest person I have ever met. Before I knew it, it was time to head to LAX, and when I tell you I have never experienced a heartbreak like this before, God, I love this woman so much. The princess, as I like to call her, was of course chauffeured all around LAX. She made so many friends, we got a ton of snacks, and we were ready for the longest flight ever. We had a tearful goodbye to America. She thanked it for everything it had brought to her. I cursed it for not letting her stay forever. We held hands the majority of the flight, and before I knew it, we were in the Philippines. All sorts of things were going through my head at this point. Will Nanny's family take good care of her? Will they resent me? How will she fit in? Will she be homesick for America? I was so anxious, I cannot even tell you. Stay tuned for part 2, my time in the Philippines.
First of all, I want to know what you think about this down in the comment section. Do you think this is cute or not? Because when she posted this video on TikTok, she was expecting, oh, you're so cute. Oh, your family is loving. Oh, she's like a mother to you. Yada, yada, yada. But she wasn't getting that. She got a lot of people coming for her with stitches and duets. So now I would like to know what you think down in the comment section. However, I'm going to be saying what I think after playing people's stitches for you. So stay tuned to the end to hear my opinion.
She thanked it for everything it had brought to her. I cursed it for not letting her stay forever. We held hands the majority.
So let me get this right. You had a stay-at-home nanny that worked for your family for 3 decades, yet you say America did not allow her to stay longer. So you're telling me within 30 years, no one helped her get a work visa so she could get a green card? If you Google it, the work visa can last up to 6 years, and then afterwards it can take up to 90 days to get a green card. So, but 30 years, you guys never helped her get citizenship, but she lived with you for 30 years? And now now America's making her go back? This doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound right.
I keep trying to film part 2 of my time in the Philippines, but I keep crying, so I'm sorry for the delay.
I'm sorry, but I can't be the only one that feels like this sort of exploitative vibe from this girl's account when it comes to her nanny. There's just this weird vibe of the rich white girl thinking she's besties with the help, even though the help was probably exploited. You're telling me in 30 years they never paid this woman to go see her family or for her family to come see her? In 30 years? And now that she's being forced to go back home, this girl's like, oh, I'm so sad, but I'm going to film this whole occasion and shove cameras in everyone's faces, guys. I'm so sad. Something's so off. It's giving the ick.
She lived with my family for about 30 years, and about 6 months ago, she decided it was time for her to move.
Oh my God, that video is so sweet. They let their slave see her family after 30 years. Oh my god. It just brings me such like a warm, bubbly feeling on the inside that your slave finally got to hug her own daughter after she felt she was done with you. You guys are the real MVP because honestly, they used to just bury their slaves with them, but you guys let your slave go home? Oh, you guys are real heroes. And I feel you. After 30 years with your slave, how easy could it be to let your best people go? She's basically your family that couldn't see her own family for 30 years. So, I get it. I understand. Hard to let them go. I'm sure it's hard for her too, in a very, very complicated way that you will never understand in your life.
I want to introduce you to the real legend of the family, Elena. She lived with my family for about 30
Alright, so basically it was this nanny that lived with them for 30 years who was from the Philippines, and in the 30 years of living there, she never went back and saw her family. And I think that this might have been like a big oops for the creator, because I don't think that she realized her experience growing up or what she was saying before she posted this video. Because people in the comments were saying, oh, it's been 30 years and in the 30 years she worked with you, you never paid for a ticket for her to go back home, a vacation, or you could never take a vacation to the Philippines and accompany her. And she's been ignoring all of those comments, which I'm pretty sure she's going to turn off anyways. And she's been responding to all of the stupid ones. The ones that are like, oh, I bet she gives the best hugs. And then she'll like that comment, or she'll, reply to that comment with the, this emoji, like with fucking both hands and shit. And I know what some people are saying automatically. They're right behind the screen. They're yelling at the screen saying, well, it's there. That's the job. You don't get these perks working at a job. That's just a job. Why do they have to pay for a ticket? You don't have to. But you have a person, this lady clearly immigrated for survival purposes so that she could feed her family. She's been there for 30 years. She's been part of the family for 30 years. She's done so much emotional and physical and financial labor for them. And the one thing that would probably mean the most to her, being reunited with those who she's doing all of this for, and they didn't give her. And what's so funny is that at the end of the video, she's holding her hand in the airplane and shit. And she goes, I curse America for not letting my nanny stay longer. Insane.
legend of the family, Elena. She lived with my family for about 30 years. And about 6 months ago,
I've re-recorded this so many times because I just can't get all my thoughts into 60 seconds. But this is what I wrote my thesis on. And it's really interesting the way you're framing this as oh my god, he's finally going home after 30 years. Oh my god, yeah. Do you know how long 30 years is? 30 years is a long time. It's very sad to see that your parents didn't even provide means for her to even get citizenship or even to go home more often. And this phenomenon is not exclusive to you. It's a very common thing with mainly South Asian women, African women, and Latin American women. And the only white women I can say that also experience this kind of behavior is women who are from Eastern Europe. So Poles, Russians, those kind of people. And it really is just an exploitation of power. It really is the only way for the West to sustain itself. And it's really sad because you genuinely think this is a happy story. This is not a happy story. This is actually quite a sad story. Your family exploited this woman for 30 years. She had kids of her own. Her kids are probably resenting her. Her family probably they are grateful for the money going home, but I spoke to kids like this. They miss their parents. They pray that their parents can come home. She didn't want to raise you.
she sacrificed raising her son and daughter to get a job in America and send every dollar she could back home.
This whole situation is heartbreaking and tragic, yet far too common throughout history. Constantine's story from The Help was the first thing that popped in my head as I watched the video that white girl was making, and how tone deaf. Throughout history, women of color have had to basically put their own families aside to raise a white family in hopes of giving their kids a better future financially. Dating back to when black people were enslaved. I had white friends growing up that had a nanny, and a lot of these nannies were people of color and spoke other languages too. The most twisted and crazy thing about it is as we got older, these kids who are raised by these amazing women ended up going down an alt-right Trump pipeline. And it's so psychological. It doesn't make sense. I just can't even imagine what it must feel like for the nanny to raise a whole other set of kids that aren't your own, knowing your own kids are in a completely different space far away. And for the white family to be so aware of her situation and complicit, not even like helping her get her kids or being with them, like it all seems so backwards. And I just hope this happens less and less. And in her video, you can see the ignorance. It's loud and clear as she's being so boastful about taking a woman away from her kids. Yeah, it's really frustrating, and history needs to stop repeating itself.
Of the family. Elena, she lived with my family for about 30 years, and about 6 months ago.
So if you haven't seen that full video, go back and watch it and then come back. It's a repost of the original poster, Lexi J's video. Now, I want to give Miss Lexi J some grace because I think she's in her 20s and that woman has been in her family for 30 years. So I feel like she's not going to be able to answer a lot of the questions that I have for this particular situation. But I also feel like, did you not just hear what she was with you for 30 years and she was never able to go back to see her family? Why? Why? To provide context, when my grandmother first came to this country from Panama, the family that she was working with, not only did they help her get her paperwork to be a citizen in this country, but they also made sure that she made enough money so if she wanted to come back home twice a year to see her family, she could. 30 years. I don't know if I misheard it or not. She was never able to become a citizen in that time? In the 30 years that she worked for your family? This video is not giving the heartwarming, loving tale of this woman going back to seeing her family for the first time in 30 years that you think it was. I have so many questions.
I keep trying to film part 2 of my time in the Philippines, but I keep crying, so I'm sorry for the delay.
So I stitched that video because her part 1, essentially it's about a girl who has a domestic worker from the Philippines who's been working with her family for 30 years, and she's visiting the Philippines for the first time in 30 years to see her children and her family. And she has children. She left her children in the Philippines to raise this family in America. And this pointed to something I was learning in my human rights and human trafficking module that shows that the line between trafficker and victim and that relationship is often blurred. Sometimes it is the nice family down the road that has given you the opportunity to educate and take care of your family in the Philippines that is exploiting you. That dynamic is clearly exploitative. That dynamic to me is a clear example of human trafficking. But those people aren't fitting into the stereotype of what we think human traffickers are. We think of them as scary men who are putting women to sex work often. But in reality, human trafficking is often domestic work. It's often labor exploitation. And one of the reasons that it is so prevalent in the domestic servant realm is that we don't see domestic servants as like actual employees. We don't see it as an actual job, and so they often don't have the same labor rights as other workers. And it's for a lot of reasons: misogyny. A lot of domestic servants are women, and it just goes to show that a lot of people can be human traffickers, and that we as a society need to ask more questions about like certain dynamics. I am pretty sure there are people in her family her friends and even family members who would have visited her and like seen the nanny and just thought, oh, this is normal. They wouldn't ask questions about why is the nanny always here? Does she not have children? Or even if they did, they just didn't think about it again. And it kind of reminds me of like, even in Nigeria, I'm not even saying this to be like high and mighty. I feel like I need to ask more questions. Like even in Nigeria, as a Nigerian, as an African, we have these like exploitative relationships between domestic servants and their workers, and we don't ask questions. We don't ask, oh, why is Auntie Sukurat hiring the girl from the village? Why is Auntie Patience hiring someone from the village who is 15? Or why aren't they like paying them adequately? We need to ask more questions. We need to be more vigilant to human trafficking as a society and understand that it's not binary.
Over 30 years since Nanny had last been to the Philippines. She sacrificed raising her son and daughter.
I know that was supposed to be a cute and lovely story, but my thing is, if your parents could afford to pay her for 30 years to be a personal everything, apparently, they could afford to give her 2 weeks off or a month off and a plane ticket to the Philippines every year, every 2 years, every 6 months. I don't know, something. Those actions aren't living. Those are selfish and entitled. You kept her from her family when you had the means to help her at least go see them.
It had been over 30 years since Nanny had last been to the Philippines. She sacrificed.
So I have been watching a couple of video reactions and the video of Lexi where she takes her nanny of 30 years back to the Philippines. The video is disturbing, especially for me because my mom came into this country as an illegal immigrant, and she did a lot of similar jobs, working as a housekeeper and, cleaning people's houses and everything. And I know how difficult it is to be an illegal immigrant here in the United States. And I know how hard it is. And I also know that the reason why a lot of illegal immigrants come into the U.S. is for a better life, to grow and have a better life. And the fact that this lady was denied that by this family is really sad. And they literally robbed 30 years of this lady's life. They did absolutely nothing to help this lady. They didn't help her, not even get her work visa. Nothing for her. And I wouldn't really necessarily blame Lexi because she's clearly really naive and she doesn't know any better. But her parents knew exactly what they were doing. They did nothing to help this lady. It's just unbelievable. They just kept her trapped in the US and she didn't have no options. Just working for them was her only option. It's really disgusting. So this is pure human trafficking, just as that lady just said. It is pure human trafficking. How can someone come to work with you for over 30 years and the person has not gone back to their country, and they don't even have any work permits, they don't have any passport for over 30 years in America, working with you as a nanny? It doesn't sound well at all. It doesn't speak well of your family. It doesn't sound well at all. However, something like this also used to happen back where I am in Nigeria. When someone just wants to come and help you in the house, you don't even take them back to their country, or else they request for it. Some request for it during the festive period, which is Christmas and all of that. End of the year, they go back to their country or wherever they're coming from. But what I'm trying to say is, most of the time, once you've gotten a child or a person to help you in the house, once you get that person, you start paying them and they can stay with you for as long as you guys agree to stay together, and maybe there's no issue. So now, this happening in America and to this old woman is really sad because she left her children, her family for over 30 years, and that is a lot. She hasn't even gone home. This is the height. I know back in Nigeria where I am, people do that, but I'm saying they go home at the end of the year just to see their family. If they don't have family back there, person that brought them, they allow them go for holiday for that end of the year, then come back again starting January. But this one, 30 whole years, and this woman has not achieved anything. So I don't know, I really want to know what you all think in the comment section. Of course, there's an apology video that she made, which I'm going to be posting the apology video tomorrow, so stay tuned to this channel. Just, what you have to do for me is to like this content, comment, and subscribe. then YouTube will do its thing and bring the video to you. All right, and turn on the post notification as well, so that I can get the apology video that she did after this whole thing went viral. So thank you all so much for sticking around to this point. I'd love to know what you think down in the comment section, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.